I did a bachelor's degree in computer science here at BYU. I then went to, well, while I was doing that, I worked at some startups. Right after my mission, I was involved in a startup. We did some text indexing and compression software, which was a big deal 25 years ago. And today you just kind of take it for granted that you've got Google and it can look up anything you want to just right away. But back in the day, that was a big deal. That was not common. While I was working on that startup, I realized I needed a better education. There were problems that I wanted to solve that I really couldn't solve with my bachelor's degree. So I went back and I got a PhD, again here at BYU. It was very efficient for me to continue with my startup work and also do my school. And while I was there, I got recruited by the Marriott School faculty. And I've been here now for, well, I'm starting my 18th year at this point. So I've been here a long time. I am a professor in the Information Systems Department. I'm also the academic director of the Rollins Center for Entrepreneurship and Technology. And I'll talk more about what the center does as part of this discussion today. A few years ago, I did a sabbatical to be the CTO full-time for Entice Labs, a local startup company, and that was really an interesting experience. I've also served in the CTO role for other startups, and I'm currently doing a deep dive, I've been in this for several years now, into mobile development. The phone that you see up here on the left is my current phone, my Google Galaxy Nexus phone. I've bought most of the Google phones that have come out, not the T-Mobile or the Samsung or the HTC or whatever, but the ones that are branded Google on the back, the developer phones. This one came to me because I lost my other one on the trail to Kings Peak a few weeks ago. So it was 18 months old. It was time for an upgrade. But sad to see it go nonetheless. But anyway, I love developing. I love digging into this kind of stuff. Okay, so what is an entrepreneur? If you know French, how many speak French? Okay, is this correct? Does it literally mean undertaker? Okay. Okay, not a mortician, but somebody who undertakes. Yes, that's right. So this is kind of cute. I write it this way because it's kind of funny in English. But yes, somebody who undertakes is an entrepreneur. One who undertakes an enterprise. One who owns and manages a business. I've underscored this part. A person who takes the risk of profit or loss. That is an undertaker, an entrepreneur, in the sense that we're talking about. The Oxford English Dictionary is sort of the gold standard for dictionaries of the English language. So, what is tech entrepreneurship? Well, to me, it's the creation, the cultivation, the management of ventures whose core products are based on information technology. So you're not just doing some old business, it's something where IT is the core of what you're about. Typically, technology ventures are scalable. It's easy to get to millions of users. Well, easy is the wrong word to say. Compared to shipping 1 million pieces of product, it's easy to serve up 1 million web pages to 1 million different users. Can you see how if I have to manufacture 1 million of anything, that's a much bigger deal than if I just have to send out 1 million bits? How many bits does it take to make one digital image? You take a photo with your cell phone camera. How many bits of information have you produced there?
15 million.
7 million, 16 million, could be 30 million. I mean, it's a lot of bits. A bit is a 0 or a 1, okay, for those who haven't studied this. 8 bits makes a byte. Half a byte, well, we call it a nibble. N-Y-B-B-L-E. Have you ever heard that term? Okay, I'm getting too geeky. Let me turn off the geek, back up a bit. But anyway, these will be, you've heard about megapixels. Each pixel is going to be either 8 or 24 bits of information. So if you've got a 5 megapixel camera, that's going to be 40 million bits maybe. Or it could be 3 times that. It could be 120 million bits of information. You're producing a lot of information in this digital age. Just by walking around with a smartphone, you're dealing with a ton of information. Now, try to manufacture 1 million of these, now that's a hard problem. That's something that takes a lot more manpower, a lot more human scalable ventures can change the world. Okay, think of some of the brands that make a difference in your everyday life. Who has changed your consumer behavior? What brands out there have changed your consumer behavior?
Google.
You're wearing a shirt that says Google right on the front. Who doesn't go to Google to, maybe the Microsoft guys don't want to admit it, but who doesn't go to Google and ask for Google's advice on a product before you go buy it? Netflix. They've got all kinds of, many billions and billions, trillions of bits that they'll share with you electronically for a small, low price of $9.95 or whatever the number is these days. These scalable ventures can change the way we live, the way we behave. Facebook has an impact on us. Carrying around a smartphone is a big deal. We don't think about it very much, but just having a cell phone, where we can talk to anybody anywhere, that's a lot different than when I was a kid. Okay, so we're going to be talking about tech entrepreneurship in this lecture series. Things that are focused on scalable ventures. Now, why a Rollins Center? Why the Center for Entrepreneurship and Technology? A number of years ago, more than a decade ago, we looked around at what was coming down the road at the Marriott School here, and we said, look, we've got this information systems program. We see that our world is increasingly becoming networked and digitized. And what happens when you connect more things and you digitize more things is the way you interact with the world changes a lot. There are very profound implications to that shift. And we wanted to prepare students to be ready for that kind of a world. We asked ourselves, why couldn't our students start the next Google, or the next YouTube, or the next Amazon, or the next, fill in the blank? And we have some very interesting startups that have come out of BYU. We have Omniture, started by a couple of students who didn't quite graduate. Instead, they sold Omniture to Adobe for $1.8 billion. That was kind of cool. I don't know which is cooler, graduating or... Anyway, I'll leave that for you to ponder. Why can't our students be the ones who go out there and do that? Our students can. You guys and gals can. This is totally within the realm of things that you can do. And that's part of what the Rollins Center wants to help foster. Great entrepreneurs. I've written extraordinary here because of the alliteration. We want to build extraordinary entrepreneurs, just like you. Now, when I was in high school, that's where my beginnings in entrepreneurship were. We had a small group of friends. We became coders for hire. Our notion of a portable computer was kind of a big old briefcase. Does anybody remember the Osborne computers? I'll bet you we could Google them. Find you. Okay, I'm just going to do that because I just have to. Oh, images. Osborne 1, there we go. They say laptop, not even. Okay, we had this little briefcase that we could pack around that was quite heavy, had a little, I don't know, is that a 5 or a 6-inch monitor, I can't remember what, monochrome. You get 24 characters, 24 rows by 80 characters wide, and that was really cool. It really was back in the day. Okay? All right, enough of uphill both ways in the snow when I was a kid. But that was the kind of thing we did. We worked on machines like that. We were nerds, total nerds. We had fun. My first job was programming. I didn't go out and get a job at Subway or whatever else. I got a job programming. In fact, I was making $6.50 an hour at my first job. I thought, man, this is cool. I'm going to do more of this. When you're making $6.50 an hour, you can go to Burger King and you can get a chicken sandwich and a burger. That was kind of fun. Okay, early college, I was doing software development startups. I decided that I would get involved in writing some software. Zions Bank was one of our early customers. We replaced their microfiche machine with a Unix system. They were spending $40,000 a month on film, supplies, stuff like that. The machine was always breaking down. It was not an ideal solution. We replaced it with a Unix-based system that connected to their mainframe. It had an optical disc jukebox that would hold 50 or 100 platters, I can't remember which. And it was something like, I want to say, 650 megabytes per platter. And the jukebox would go pick a disk that had the information that somebody was looking up. It would go inserted into one of the 2 drives down at the bottom of the jukebox. It would spin that up, and we could look up information much quicker than a human operator could go find the sheet of microfiche, put it into the fiche reader, and go find on that page where the data was that they were looking for. Cleaner, it was very cool. I thought, oh yeah, this is the career for me. Let's see, I think I told you a little bit about my story on getting a PhD and et cetera, so let me skip on. So that was kind of my road. I've dabbled in startups even after joining the faculty here, and I really enjoy that kind of stuff. So I think I have some insight into what it takes to be a tech entrepreneur. What do you need to know? I would say the very first level of intelligence that you need in tech entrepreneurship is identifying and developing ideas. How many of you have an idea for a startup? Something you think would be cool? All right, good. Now, if you don't have an idea for a startup, it's not that hard to get one. You can get an idea for a startup pretty quickly. You just have to look at a need and say, okay, is there a product out there that would meet that need already? If not, let me imagine what I can imagine. Now, the problem is, ideas are a dime a dozen. You can come up with lots of ideas, but how many of them are opportunities that are worth pursuing? How are you going to know the answer to that question? Think about that for a second. What would make an idea an opportunity worth pursuing?
We can make money.
Okay, something about making money. The worth attaches money to the equation.
Part of that is knowing that there's a market out there. You have a big customer base.
Okay, figuring out the size of the market that you can address. All right, so if I'm selling LDS genre books, how many people are in my market? Maybe it's 14 million, maybe it's larger than that. Maybe there are friends of LDS who are curious. All these, Mitt Romney's running for president. There are people who want to learn about it. Maybe your market's bigger, but that's going to be a little bit different than if you're just saying, writing Harry Potter or something like that has more of a worldwide, broader audience. You need to know what the market is for your particular idea. So I won't try to dig into all of the ways that we analyze whether an idea is an opportunity worth pursuing. But let me just put that stake in the ground. Ideas are almost a dime a dozen, but opportunities that are truly worth pursuing, that takes a little bit more vetting, a little bit more study and research, and they're rarer than just ideas. The next level of intelligence that you need, you've got to develop some startup skills. You've got to figure out how you create, manage, and finance ventures. There's a lot of stuff you need to know, and we have classes that help you with this. Selling. How many? Well, I'm not going to ask for raising hands, but selling is a key skill for an entrepreneur. If you're not good at selling, you're probably not going to have a very successful business. You always need to be selling when you're a startup. You need to learn how you bootstrap it, how you raise money. You need to learn how to build teams. Is anybody here looking for a technology person to join your startup team? Okay, I see it. Raise them high again. Okay, so maybe 10 hands, somewhere like that. Is anybody here a tech person who's looking to join a startup team? Okay, a similar number of hands. All right, so you can see that there are some people looking, some people wanting to join. That is a tough challenge. How do you build the right team? How do you build a team that's cohesive, that's going to be able to execute your plan? How do you brand and market your company? I mean, there's a lot of knowledge that you need to master as a tech entrepreneur. Here are some of the programs we have in the Marriott School to help out. We've got the business minor that many of you are in. How many are in the business minor? Okay, that's a good chunk of this class. We also have a major with the business management major with the entrepreneurship emphasis will give you probably the deepest skills education. How many entrepreneurship majors here? Okay, so only a few. Okay, a lot more minors here. The information systems major is a great place to learn technology depth. How many ISIS majors here? Okay, there you go. All right, that's my program. So. And we have various graduate programs. For example, in the MBA, if you go do an MBA here, you can declare entrepreneurship as your major and take classes in entrepreneurship. And even if you don't declare it as your major, you can still take those classes. MISM, Master of Information Systems Management, is another graduate program that will help in this regard. and there are others. So the centers are also a great resource for developing your education in this regard. My center, the Rollins Center, focuses specifically on, well, entrepreneurship generally, but specifically tech entrepreneurship. We try to do some things like, this semester we're doing a mobile app competition. We're going to give away some, I don't know, it's about $10,000 in prize money to students who develop interesting apps. And that will be on November the 28th, I think, are the finals for the mobile app competition. And there will be more announcements that Josh will bring to the class every week about things like that. We have events like our idea pitch competition. We have our Student Entrepreneur of the Year. The Engineering College has Student Innovator of the Year, and we fund that competition. Let's see, we have what used to be called the Business Plan Competition is now the Miller New Venture Challenge. And we're going to be doing some very exciting things with that New Venture Challenge this year. And we'll be giving away, I want to say it's about $100,000 of prizes in the New Venture Challenge this year. There's a lot of money available if you really have a good idea and you've built up your team. You can go throughout this coming school year, participate in the various steps along the way, leading up to the New Venture Challenge finals at the end of the school year. We have a business model competition. In fact, we have been hosting an international business model competition that in May of 2013 we're taking to Harvard. They'll be the hosts over there. We've done it 2 years now at BYU. We'll go to Harvard, then we want to take it to Stanford, and then bring it back to BYU and rotate between those 3 universities from year to year. There's also the Ballard Center for Economic Self-Reliance. If you're interested in social entrepreneurship, there's actually a special lecture series for social entrepreneurship. I forget, do you know which number is that? Section 4 or 5? Anyway, it's one of the other sections of 371R. And they do a lot of interesting things. They bring TEDx to campus. Pretty cool talks that are given at TEDx. And the Global Management Center also has some resources, but probably not as many towards entrepreneurship. We have some awesome clubs. How many of you are in the CEO Club already? That's the Collegiate Entrepreneurs Organization. There's the AIS Club, Association for Information Systems, that I'm advertising. Okay? There are a lot of clubs. Computer Science has the Association for Computing Machinery, ACM. Engineering folks have the Engineering Technology Startup. And you just have to look around and you can find lots of resources to help you find people and ideas and knowledge and extracurricular events that will build your resume and help you get the experience you really want. And as I said, we have a lot of competitions with a lot of money available. So if you need seed capital, you can do well in our competitions and get your company started. We'll also teach you how to raise money from angels and venture capitalists and so forth, but that's a little tougher. Now, the role of mentors in a startup is really important. We have many people. It's I think 50 or 60 people are signed up as mentors right now in our getmentoring.com system. If you want to do a business, you should talk to our mentors. Well, first you need to do your research, but you should talk to our mentors and get their insights and avoid some of the pitfalls. Everybody makes mistakes, but they'll help you to step around some of those traps that are just waiting for you. So start at getmentoring.com, and our offices down in 470 Tanner have a lot of resources available too. When you go to our mentors, one of the typical things that they'll do is they'll say, before you come see me, I want you to read some stuff. So we love the Nail It and Scale It book that Nathan Furr has written. And Steve Blank has a book called The Startup Owner's Manual. Alex Osterwalder has one called Business Model Generation. And there are many, many, many other books available. We have a library, again, down in 470 that you're welcome to come peruse and check out books. And you don't have to buy these things. You can go check them out and start to read through them. You'll shortchange yourself if you say, you know, I just want to go out there and do this stuff, and I don't want to take the time to read anything. You need some time to what Steve Covey would call sharpening the saw. You need to spend some time developing your skills. And so we have a lot of resources available down there. So there's a lot more. If you're in tech entrepreneurship, there are trends that you've got to be on top of. You need to understand social networking. Okay, does anybody here not have a Facebook account? One person, two people. Okay. Isn't that interesting how deeply Facebook has penetrated our society? How many of you have a Twitter account? Raise your hand if you have Twitter. That's most of you. How many have tweeted today? In the past week? Okay. You need to understand the trends of mobile computing. Having this machine, okay, so this will run circles around that H89 that I showed you earlier. There is so much more power here in my hand than we could have conceived of 25 years ago. And we'll talk about why that is here in just a minute. And understanding where the web is going. The web is really transforming quickly. You've got to be good at technology, so either be a geek or get a geek to be your friend. Okay, that's not a bad strategy also. Now, fundamental concepts. 3 principles that will help you kind of get your arms around what's happening in the tech space here. 1 is the network effect. 2, disruptive innovation. 3, exponential technology growth. So, network effect drives standards. A network effect occurs when a product becomes more valuable as more people use it. Think about the telephone. How much good is a telephone if there's only one of them? The only use I can think of for exactly one telephone is you can brag to all the other people, all the other Neanderthals in your community, hey, look, I've got a telephone. But as soon as somebody else gets a telephone, they join the network. Now you two can talk. You have 2 points of communication. A third person joins, and now my value went up because I can call the first person, but I can also call the second person. Each person in the network has 2 people they can call. And as more people join that network, it becomes more valuable. Okay, so let's think about where we've seen some network effects. Microsoft Windows showed a network effect. They totally creamed Apple back in the early days. In the 80s, it was kind of a race between the Macintosh and the PC. But Windows and Intel, the Wintel Alliance, as we say, totally dominated. And in fact, they're still the major player in corporate America. How many of you have an Intel Windows-based machine as your primary machine? How many have a Macintosh? Okay, that's significant inroads by Apple lately. But another one that I noticed recently was the English language. When I go on international trips to present my research, everybody speaks English. There's kind of a network effect around the English language. Okay, so Robert Metcalfe founded 3Com. He invented Ethernet, the technology over which we initially built much of the internet. And he observed this law. He said, look, the value of a network increases in proportion to the square of the number of users. So as the number of users goes up, we're getting exponential growth in the value of the network. What happens when you have this kind of a situation is it costs a lot of money to build the network, but adding a single user onto the network isn't very expensive. And existing users don't have to pay to get another person on. So is anybody here on iProvo, the fiber network? Or how about Utopia? You don't know. Okay. Well, it takes a lot of money to dig up the streets and put that fiber in and run it up the utility poles and all that kind of stuff. Hundreds of millions of dollars probably to wire Utah Valley for fiber everywhere. That's a lot of money, a lot of upfront investment. But if I'm a subscriber and I just want to join the network, it's going to cost a fraction of that investment to get me onto the network. But anyway, so that's what happens with these network effects. You get this winner-take-all situation going on. And it's because you see a comparative utility. Just like Microsoft Windows, we now have iPhone that's kind of the dominant smartphone. So survey time again. How many have an Android phone? How many have an iPhone or iPod or iPad? Some of you may have both. I've got both, right? But, so why is it that iOS is so popular? All right, well, users like to buy iPhone because lots of developers write cool software for it. How many apps on the App Store? 500,000? Some huge number. I mean, they've always been bragging about these. And they snicker at Windows Phone now because it's only got, what, 50,000 or 100,000 or some number like that. All right. So users like to buy iPhone because that's where all the apps are. Developers like to write software for the iPhone because that's where all the users are. And you very quickly get this winner-takes-all cycle going on. This feedback happens very quickly. And so we get monopolies in the technology space if you can create a network effect. So what do you need for a network effect? A large cost to initially build the network, a large investment that's tough to do, and then something where as more people join, the value increases for everybody who's a part of that. Why is it that you buying an iPhone makes my iPhone more valuable?
iMessage.
Okay, so I can talk to you through whatever the apps are on that particular device. You validate me when you buy that. You say, oh, I'm doing the same thing as he did, and so I feel better about that. You know, the people, after they buy a new car, they pay more attention to the ads for that car than they did before they bought it. They really want to be validated. So there's that aspect to it. But from a technology perspective, the fact that more people are joining is making a bigger, excuse me, a more juicy target for the developers. The developers say, oh, that's a larger community. I'm going to go there. And that's how the iPhone got to where it is. Okay, so principle number one, network effect. Product becomes more valuable as more people join the network. Second principle, disruptive innovation. A disruptive innovation is an innovation that displaces an entrenched technology. It doesn't displace it because it performs better. It displaces it because it provides an overall better value. Okay, so think about this. Are more iPhones sold or more Android phones sold?
Android.
Android. Okay, so numerically it has overtaken the iPhone market. Is Android better than iOS?
Debatable.
No.
Okay, now that's a religious debate, so let's... Yeah, I probably shouldn't bait you with that kind of a question. So some people will say, you know what, that Android operating system, if you grew up on Android, you suffered through things that the iOS users didn't have to suffer through at the same level of pain. I don't know how else to say it. Android displaced, in some sense, some uses of iOS because it provided better value, not because it performed better. In fact, some people will still say today that there are technical superiorities to the iOS platform over the Android platform. And then the other guys will argue it the other way. But anytime you see a disruptive innovation, it is because it's providing better value, not better performance. You alter the basis on which you compete. So here's how that happens. Over time, the market gets more sophisticated. Back when I was a kid, we didn't have power locks, we didn't have power windows. Sometimes we had air conditioning, but that was kind of a fancy feature when I was a kid. I remember my dad's 1965 Rambler sedan, and it didn't have any of those features. But it got us to church and back. Okay, over time, the market expects more. You're not going to go buy a car today, probably, without power locks and power windows and that kind of stuff. I mean, you can save the money, but how many have no power locks and no power windows? Okay, so and maybe because the car is broken, not because it didn't come with it in the first place. Okay, but, yes?
Interestingly, this is the first year that there's not an American car available without air conditioning.
Oh, I did not know that. So there are no American cars that do not have air conditioning standard.
Yeah.
Interesting. The market gets more sophisticated over time. It demands more performance over time. Now, there's always a low end and a high end. There are those who buy the cheap car and those who buy the expensive car. I just saw the rule that was proposed by the Obama administration doubles fuel efficiency by 2025 model year. We're going to see the market shift in terms of fuel efficiency technologies if that rule stays in place. Okay, so let's look at a sustaining technology. Here's a green line. There's a technology that's going to grow over time. Let's say it's a car. I'm Ford, I'm manufacturing an automobile, and I say, you know what, it'd be really cool if I could just hit a button and it would lock and unlock the doors. And so I add that feature. The next year I say, you know what, I can roll these windows up and down. And next year I say, hey, I could add a side curtain airbag, and that would make my people more safe. And we continue to add features over time. At some point, most sustaining technologies will get beyond what the high end of the market is really looking for. Does anybody here think that you understand all the features of Microsoft Word? It's been many years since I felt like I was the master of WordPerfect and Word and that kind of software, where I could totally understand all the feature set. In the early days, everybody could understand all the features. That's no longer true. There are more features in there than you really need. They bury them in extensions and add-ons and things like that. So along comes a disruptive innovation. At the point at which the disruptive innovation is created, it begins its own technology trajectory. Now look where it is. It starts out below the low end of the market. A technology comes along and we say, oh, battery-powered 5-inch black and white TV. I don't want that. I'm looking for the 40-inch flat panel that I can put in my home. And we look at that and we laugh. We say that nobody's going to buy that product. But over time, if the manufacturer sticks with it, it gets better and better and better. Now, look at where it is when it crosses over into the low end of the market. Where is our sustaining technology that we want to compete with? Way above the high end. That means it's going to be an expensive technology. And here I come in with this cheap, and I mean cheap in all senses of the word, I come in with this cheap product that doesn't have all the features, but it doesn't cost that much, and there's a market for it. There are people at the low end will buy that. And over time it gets better, and eventually it displaces that entrenched technology because it's a better value. Now this happens in technology all the time. Think about storage. Has anybody produced a CDR recently? 1, 2, 3. I did one the other day because I bought a used car and I had to upgrade the firmware. I wanted to upgrade the firmware in the stereo, and it took a CD, and so I had to put it on a CDR. And so we dusted off the pile of CDRs. It wouldn't read from the USB port, which it has. But anyway, so what replaced CDs? Okay, so flash drives, and DVDs to some extent, but flash drives. Okay, what's replacing flash drives? Cloud. What's going to replace the cloud? Brain implant? Yeah, I mean, who knows? Okay, but this happens in storage technology all the time. How big is your hard drive? How much data does your hard drive store? Terabyte, a trillion bytes, 250 billion bytes, 500 billion bytes, some number like that is what your hard drive stores. I have in my Apple MacBook Pro 256 gigabytes of solid state storage. It's not a hard drive, it's memory chips. It's super fast. I love it. Okay, what's going to disrupt that? Well, I just see the capacity going up. But technology displaces other technology all the time. You need, as a technology manager, to be watching out for that kind of stuff. We don't teach our people very well how to manage for disruptive innovations. And if you can find a disruptive innovation, you've got a great opportunity that's worth pursuing. All the time, happens all the time. Remember when Microsoft was king? Are they king today?
Yeah.
Who's the darling today? Google, Apple, Google, Apple. Who is it? I think it's Apple is the darling today. Google was the darling just a couple of years ago. They're still pretty cool. They still change behavior all the time. Anyway, disruptive innovations happen all the time. Okay, so we have network effect, we have principles of disruptive innovation. Now let's look at Moore's Law. Gordon Moore is the co-founder of Intel. In the year I was born, he observed that every 18 to 24 months, we double the number of transistors that we can put on a chip. Now, what does a transistor mean? A transistor is what we use to either store a bit, a 0 or a 1, or we can use it to compute some level of computation inside the computer. So the more transistors we have, the more information we can store, and the more we can process information in our computers. They get faster, they get more capable, all of that. Over here on the right, what you see is a chart that I copied from Wikipedia the last time I looked. This may be updated now if you go to Wikipedia today and look up Moore's Law. But this is a log linear graph. Log linear means that the vertical scale here is going up logarithmically. The first number is 2,300, 10,000, 100,000, a million, going up by a power of 10 each time. So what looks like a straight flat line here, this linear line, that's log linear. That's this exponential curve that's showing we're doubling the capacity just right about every 24 months. That's the 24-month line right there, the dashed line. And these dots are the Intel CPUs over the generations. So it's remarkably accurate between the years 1971 and 2008. Okay, so what happens when we double over generations is really interesting. Okay, there's a story I like to tell about this. The Emperor of China was enamored with the game of chess. He said, oh, this is a very cool new game. And he pulled in the inventor and he said to him, hey, you've done such a great job with this game. I want you to have something really nice. So you ask for whatever you want, and if I can do it, I'll make it happen. And so the inventor of chess, being a clever fellow, thought, I'd like a grain of rice. And the emperor's like, what? A grain of rice? Are you crazy? That's nothing. A grain of rice for the first square on the chessboard. 2 grains of rice for the second square, 4 for the third square, and so on until we cover the board. The emperor wasn't as clever as the inventor of chess, and he said, oh, okay, done, we'll do it. Then when he started to try to fulfill that order, okay, how many grains of rice is that? How many squares on a chessboard? 8 by 8, that's 64 squares. Okay, and if you double every generation, that's going to be about 2 to the 64th power. How many grains of rice is that? Okay, 2 to the 32nd power is about 4 billion. So 4 billion, and you keep on raising that by powers of 2, another set of doublings here. That's more than you have atoms in the visible universe. That's a lot of stuff. 2 to the 64th of anything is a lot of that. So that's what Moore's Law illustrates, is that when we double generation to generation, we increase in capability very, very quickly. The stuff that we flew to the moon on back in the 60s, that's a joke by today's standard. We have so much more power that we just take for granted. I mean, this smartphone running at gigahertz speeds, when my old H89 was running at 2 megahertz, 2.5 megahertz, it still kind of blows my mind. Sorry about going there again. Here's what happens. We have increasing computational power. We have increasing storage capability. We have increasing network bandwidth, the ability to transmit bits back and forth. I bought this thing and all of a sudden my network speeds increased from 3G to 4G. That was kind of cool to see that speed bump. I can watch videos on here that probably wouldn't have worked so smoothly on 3G. So increasing bandwidth. All of this stuff happens at a decreasing cost per unit. And we get increasing connectivity in the sense that, you know what, I can be driving, or my wife can be driving down I-15 while I'm sitting with this device tethered to my computer, and I can be doing internet stuff at 75 miles an hour on the freeway. That kind of changes the way you think about life a little bit. Okay, so we have these converging trends, and here's what happens. We increase the speed and capacity and lower the cost of our technology. That lets us process information faster, which lets us rethink the way we operate, the way we do our business, and we innovate. And we develop new goods and services to market to our customers. And then we get this network effect, we hope, that increases the demand for IT even more. And all of this leads us to say, you know what, I better keep spending money on research and development so that I can build the next generation of increased speed and higher capacity at a lower cost. And we get this virtuous cycle of innovations that happens over and over and over again. Business keeps on cycling through these advances in IT, and it's really quite breathtaking to see the improvements. Even just over the several years that I've been developing for mobile devices, the improvement in the capability of these handsets is almost mind-boggling when you put them side by side. Anyway, okay, let me breathe. Technology has been changing rapidly for a lot of years. Ever since I was born, it's been doubling every 2 years, the capacity, at least doubling. Now, business is beginning to change just as rapidly. And we need to figure out how we deal with that pace of change. So, The millennial generation, what do you need to understand? You need to be able to add value in this rapidly changing world where you've got Moore's Law and disruptive innovation and network effects and all of these things going on. You've got to figure out how you're going to use IT to solve business problems. It's not just good enough to say, oh, that's cool, I want to go get one. You need to figure out how you're going to apply it. How does it change your life as a salesperson, as a real estate broker, as a whatever, because you can carry a tablet around that's connected everywhere? Does it change your world? Could it change your world? You can't just be a tech guru and expect, well, I'm going to be master of this. You need to also understand the competitive drivers. Where does value come from that people are willing to pay for? You need to think creatively and look for a competitive edge, and you need to be ready to retool over and over and over again. I've taught my mobile development class half a dozen times, and I've never been able to teach it twice the same way because it keeps on changing so fast. And I'm kind of happy about that, but kind of grumpy that I have to retool it every time. But it keeps me interested in what's going on there. It may even be the case that you need to invent your own job, and some of you will do that. Some of you will be drivers of economic growth here in our economy. So, business environment is evolving rapidly. We're seeing some major trends here. We mentioned cloud computing, virtualization. We're pushing things off of our desktop and off of our handsets into the cloud and into that infrastructure that's living over there, out there somewhere. Social networking is becoming increasingly important, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. I believe personally that mobile devices are a game changer, and you need to master those and understand how you can use them. Context awareness, if I have an opportunity later in the semester, if we have somebody drop out, and I can come give you another talk on mobile, there's some really cool stuff happening, and I mean, this knows you better than almost any other piece of hardware. You carry your smartphone with you almost everywhere, even to the bathroom, right? Okay, don't have to admit it, but you do. And the fact that you've got location awareness, I mean, that changes what this thing can know about you. So here's my call to action. This semester, watch for these principles and trends. Watch for network effect in the entrepreneurs that come and speak to you. See what disruptive innovations they've been working on. See how Moore's Law has helped them to be more capable. And think about the use of socially networked and mobile technology in the kinds of startup opportunities that they have attacked. Think about how you can use IT to transform, to innovate, to build. And I think you just need to get involved and network with people. Get to know others in this class and elsewhere. I'll leave this contact slide up for a few minutes. Please take advantage of the Rollins Center. We've got a lot of opportunities. Thank you for your attention.